Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is the Aspen City Council regular meeting for March 26, 2024. That is a call to order. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth. Councillor Howenstein.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
Here as well. With no scheduled public appearances this evening, that'll bring us right to citizens' comments and petitions. This is an opportunity for citizens to address council on issues not scheduled for a public hearing. And we do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes so that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to speak. Are there members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Right in front, come on up.
Scott McDonald, 1000 East Cooper. I'm here, first of all, I'd like to ask a question of Tory. Are any of these displays open for the public for presentations?
No, not currently. No.
When will that occur?
PowerPoint, we're just in discussions about mixing our electronic and our in-person, so.
How many years has it been done? I mean, this chamber.
This chamber's been here for a little over a year.
Okay. So anyway, it's important for the public to communicate to the public.
Great.
And, you know,
Thank you.
I think it's really needed. So,
Great.
you know, put that on your agenda.
I just did.
Okay, so I'm here today to give notice to the council due to our ongoing negotiations, which have been one-sided, involving 1000 East Cooper and the city maintaining that Cleveland Street is impinging 1.5 feet into our historical 130-year-old Victorian living room. I'm giving notice that we need alternative dispute resolution in regards to this. Otherwise, next Tuesday, which is 4/2/24, I will be suing the city, Tory, and Jim True in regards to due to the extended time period that you've had to cure this problem, which is a well-known problem in Aspen since Wheeler laid it out. Okay, so anyway, that said, it's because the defendants are you, because it's the wanton transgressions of moral turpitude regarding the damages associated with 1000 East Cooper in this impingement of the street and the lack of resolve from the city to rectify it. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know I'm not blowing smoke here. I've done this before, pro se, And Caroline and I went against the assessor's office in Multnomah County. That's 800,000 people. And it took us about, I'd say, around 2 years. And it was a lot of work. And we were just essentially, we were doing this on our own against 3 lawyers, the lead assessor from Multnomah County, that's Portland, Oregon. And we prevailed all the way to the Supreme Court, and we won. And the county, the state, Salem, removed the assessor, and literally when we went in there to resolve this, the stipulations that we had, they actually, they painted mustaches on his picture on the wall. This is in Portland. So I'm saying, we've done this before. I've also done it with the 9th District Court. And it's a hell of a lot of work, but we did it, and you can look it up. In fact, it's the, let's see, where is it here? I have a note. Oh, yeah, it's the Colorado Judicial Branch. If you search it, and it's Joyce K. Murray, and it's the Colorado Supreme Court complaint. And it's public comments, and it's a report of criminal neglect, and it's like about 56 pages. So I do this pro se. You should take it seriously, because if I don't hear from the city by, when was it, the 2nd of April, there will be no more resolution, because I'm sick and tired of bantering around with you guys.
Thank you.
And, well, I'm not done. And
your 3 minutes
essentially,
is just
Jim
about up.
True's letter, finally, after years of written complaints, and that was just bloviated nonsense, and it did not address the main issue, which you dropped the ball on, Tori, and
Really?
Jim did.
Okay.
And wait a second, I'm not done.
Scott, relax.
What?
Relax.
Well,
I
I've
mean,
been
your
working
tone-
for
your tone
5
doesn't
years
need-
on this.
you're-
Now,
you
hey,
know what?
no, let me finish.
Please
The
do.
simple fact is, when Wheeler laid this town out, he had an assumed true north. He did not know what true north was. And all the streets are laid out orthogonal to true north, north-south. Basically, this has been well documented over and over and over. It goes into, when I'm talking to you, it goes into a tin ear. I have got so much exhibit evidence, including, if you want to listen,
I'm just going to remind you that your 3 minutes is about up.
well, that's true. If you don't
Thank
care
you.
about it, promissory estoppels published in the paper, the Aspen Times, saying that due to this whole screw-up mess, which acknowledges the true north issue, okay, that there's no, that they tried to allay the public's concerns, and they said, oh, no matter. The streets are so wide that you don't have to worry about it. And that's why there was not any plat map after the 1959 Buchanan resurvey of the town.
I appreciate it. We've had this conversation. I've talked to my
Why is it
attorney.
taking 2 years? We had 2.5 years now. That's what I'm saying. You dropped the ball, and I'm pissed off.
Okay. I thank you so much for coming in and letting me know that
Make
you're
sure you take
suing
a
me
look
and
at those cases.
I
because-
appreciate it. I've done site visits with you. I've met you at your house. I've
Yeah,
looked at
and
it.
it went run
I have
through one
confirmed-
ear and out the other.
Not
It's
at all.
ludicrous to
appreciate
say
it.
one
appreciate
and a half feet into a historical
I
document.
totally agree.
building.
I totally
Okay,
agree.
fix it.
Thank you. And Caroline, I appreciate your emails that you send over, so thank you.
Thanks for reading them.
Yeah, I do appreciate them. All right, if there's anybody else who has more good conversation they'd like to have, yes, sir, come on up.
To the mayor and council, I got this to you.
Thank you.
This is about Stony and the Red Butte Cemetery. I've lived here 60 years, and I've lived on Snow Bunny, and there's a financial statement on the Red Butte Cemetery. And if anybody, the other councilman need anything, or the attorney, I got an extra one or two.
You could leave them with the clerk's office right over there on the corner of the desk, and we'll be sure that everybody gets a copy that needs a copy.
I don't hear well, so even to hear you, is it okay to stand right here? I don't hear well.
We need you, yeah, we need you right there, and we will speak as loudly as we can.
I've been living over on Snow Bunny about 30-some years, and living in town about 60, but this thing is getting to be old hash, and you'll see it in there. And it's been done when John Thorpe and Joe Porter lived next door to me, they worked it all out to build the barn. A barn is a place where you keep machinery and all the equipment that you use to take care of the cemetery. Well, Stoney's wants to move somebody in over there, and that was a cut and dried thing back 12 years ago. And they built the barn 10 years ago in 2014, it's 2024. And the people who live there, there's about 28 houses, and what you're talking about is you have the cemetery at 17 acres. Well, the money for the cemetery has been taken care of very well. Wally Obermeyer takes care of it, and they've got $1.5 million. And they're worried about cutting grass, and they want to move somebody into that barn, and the 30 houses around there are worth $200 million, and we pay taxes and so forth like that. And it's not worth having somebody over. There's enough people, there's enough pickup trucks come up 82 all summer with plenty of equipment to cut grass that you don't have to have somebody in that barn. Because if I invite you, Mr. Mayor, over to my house for dinner and sit out on the back deck like everybody does around the cemetery, and here comes somebody in a car. Oh, they got to go back to the grocery store. Then they have somebody they invite over. And then like I was sitting out there about 5 years ago, and the guy next door, the transformer on the telephone pole right in front of that barn caught on fire. We had to call the fire department. And if you look in there in the pictures, you'll see there's 2 150-gallon gas tanks sitting right there that they could have caught on fire. I had to call the police department. It's not necessary to have another employee. If you look in there, in the paperwork that I gave you, Red Butte Cemetery Association taxes. Down at the bottom, number of employees, 0. The amount of money in 2022 is $1,388,000, and by now, with the stock market being like it is, and Obermeyer being a good businessman, it's probably at a minimum of $1.5 million. So that's over with. And myself, there's a picture of it. I got pictures in there. You can see the gas tanks. They're sitting right there where that transformer went off. The other thing that happens is we don't want anybody driving in the cemetery late in the afternoon after working hours. It's that simple. And he wants to put somebody in there. And this is the 3rd time it's been brought up. It was concrete, and there's a John Nichols, there it is right here. It's got 17 things, all the reasons and all the documentation that nobody is to live in the barn. I don't have to talk anymore. I can leave. But I'm not going to be in town over the next couple of months. And the guy from the Historical Society, I saw him 4 times. 3 times I caught him riding in the gondola, and he was over there at the barn. And he has seen all this stuff. And they tried to get Stoney to go along with building a place if he wanted to, but not in the barn, where the little house, when you look into, coming down Cemetery Lane, you look into the cemetery, you see that little Victorian house back in there? They said, here, you can remodel that and put somebody in there. He don't want to do that because he knows a lady that lives across the street. And he said, I've known her for 20 years, but we don't want to build it. Other than that, I can leave. You've got all the information.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah. What's your name? I'm sorry, you didn't. I don't
I'm
think.
Bob Beals.
Okay.
Beals.
So I think on March 7th we got a letter from you addressed to the HPC
Yeah,
with all this information.
yes, I do believe he's contacted council, but I do want to caution council that this will be going through HPC, and if it goes further, it will ultimately come to you. So you probably I would request that you defer any questions until it actually got to you through the proper process.
That was my next question, to see where this was, to see if, I didn't want to call it premature, but I just wanted to see, so HPC has not discussed this yet?
It has not gotten to them in the hearing. I'm not sure if it's scheduled tomorrow or later, but it has not had its full hearing in HPC yet.
Okay.
I do know that.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you. We
See,
got this.
the gentleman at the Historical Society, I've bumped into him 4 times in the last 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I can't be here later on. I've got business to be out of town and da-da-da-da-da. But I just wanted to show it to you because Stoney's been beating this drum for 10 years. We don't want anybody in the barn. A barn is to keep equipment in. I'm through.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
They have plenty of money to cut the grass. And Bill Sterling sent me up here because I asked him a question. I ran into him, and he said, go to city council. So blame it on Bill Sterling. I'll see you later. I played tennis with him for 40 years.
Nice.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Wary, the Executive Director of Alpine Legal Services. Alpine Legal Services has been providing free civil legal aid to the Roaring Fork Valley since 1987. The City of Aspen has supported our work every year since our inception. For the last 2 years, we've received $20,000 from the City of Aspen to support our work. This represents approximately 3% of our budget. For the 2024 City of Aspen nonprofit grant cycle, we applied for a large grant in the approximate amount of $92,000 to seed a new attorney fellowship program. I learned this past Thursday that we were denied our request for this grant. I don't think I'd be doing my job if I did not take this opportunity to ask you to use your discretion to allocate $20,000 to support the work of Alpine Legal Services this year, which is in keeping with your support in recent years. In 2023, we helped over 200 residents and employees of Aspen and contributed over 500 hours of free civil legal aid to residents and employees of Aspen with an estimated value of legal aid in excess of $160,000. This does not include the benefit to businesses whose employees in Aspen showed up to work in a better frame of mind because their legal issue was successfully and efficiently resolved, people who would otherwise have no access to counsel. While the public defender is guaranteed for people accused of a crime, no such right exists for civil cases, which can be at least as life-altering for the safety and stability of residents and employees in our community. The working relationship between the City of Aspen and Alpine Legal Services is now approaching 4 decades, and I would not want this to be the first year in over 37 years that the City of Aspen did not support free civil legal aid for vulnerable residents and employees of your community. Again, I'm asking you to allocate $20,000 in your budget for civil legal aid to uphold the rule of law for low-income residents and employees of the City of Aspen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What category are you under? Is this Health and Human Services or community nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit, and it is Health and Human Services.
So, do you know which one you applied under? I see that one, but what category? Oh, Health and Human Services. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And do you do work for response advocacy? I feel like that's where I've heard your name
That's sort of
before.
how, yeah, we receive most of the referrals from the city of Aspen through response. So when someone is seeking a civil protection order to remove themselves from an abusive relationship, we are typically the first go-to for assistance with how to go about doing that.
And lastly, where do most of your proceeds come from?
We're about half right now from state grants and about 25% individuals, and then the other 25% to 1/3 is local grants, like
For-
municipalities and counties.
Like Pitkin County, Garfield, like what other municipalities have?
So Pitkin County, 33,000, Garfield County, 24,000, City of Rifle, Parachute, Newcastle, Carbondale, Basalt. I'm not sure exactly of those amounts, but I think they're all around 5,000 or less. What
That's it. That's what I was wondering, but no, that answers all my questions, and thank you.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll have a discussion about this since it's on the agenda, our consent calendar. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
May I be excused?
Tis the season.
You love this meeting, Tori.
This is my favorite meeting of the year.
My name is Breeze Richardson. I'm the Executive Director of Aspen Public Radio. And we're absolutely honored to be able to receive annual nonprofit grant funding from the City of Aspen. I just wanted to give voice to how critical these funds are for nonprofit community organizations like Aspen Public Radio. Not simply for our local news service, or to cover the dues and carriage fees for the regional, national, and international programming we broadcast, but to financially support Aspen Public Radio as the only public broadcaster in Pitkin County, in the city of Aspen, actively preparing to cascade life-saving emergency information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in times of wildfire or other public health emergencies. I want to take the opportunity today, in light of this year's nonprofit grant cycle featuring the highest demand in the history of the City of Aspen Grants Program, both in terms of total cash requests and the total number of applicants, to urge the city to make more funding available for community nonprofits as you consider your 2025 funding priorities. Our community nonprofit organizations keep Aspen and the Roaring Fork Valley vibrant and are so important to quality of life for so many. Thank you, John and Ward. Thank you to Bill and Sam and to Tori, to Sarah Ott and the grants team, of course to Natalie and John for overseeing this process, and to Ann Mullins and the Grant Review Committee for their work. And as you know, I'm always available and standing by to assist in how the city can benefit from us and how I can support you in underwriting more of the nonprofit work happening in our community.
Thank you so much. Just for public information, were you awarded a grant this year?
Thank you. For nearly 20 years, the City of Aspen has supported the radio station at a $90,000 or $100,000 funding level. And while we were awarded a grant this year, it's for $45,000. So I'll be looking to the individual philanthropy of our community and to the other municipalities of the Valley to try to fill what is now a $50,000 deficit. I will also say, Tori, that we received in-kind support this year for the first time upon asking for staff and labor cost support at the Wheeler Opera House for the Aspen Psychedelic Symposium we'll be hosting on May 30th and June 1st. Thank you very much, as that's equivalent to a $4,500 sponsorship for the event. So, in-kind and cash.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Breeze.
Thanks, Breeze.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Alex Sanchez. I'm on the Board of Directors for Junior Achievement, Roaring Fork Valley. I'm here on behalf of my board, district manager, and all of the students we serve to thank you for the grants that we were awarded. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this. Thank you to the grant committee and all that put in work to this. Junior Achievement works to provide financial literacy to all school districts, grade levels, elementary as high as high school. We serve from Aspen all the way to Parachute. We are proud to say that our Aspen classes have doubled to 10 this year, and we are looking to continue to grow that. And our total class requests from Parachute to Aspen has grown to 133 this past year, which we are happy. So we are just here to thank you. I know you've been supportive of us in the past, just so you can put an additional name and face to that organization. I, being a Pitkin County employee in my daytime job, but really support this work because I think teaching financial literacy to a lot of our school kids is very important, because while some in our community and area might be very affluent, not all are getting the same education and training to be successful in life, and that is where we look to plug into those opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in. Other members of the public that are in room, which like to address, come on up.
I know you all love Aspen and you will protect it. And I believe that most of you are all pretty against widening of the Aspen airport. I don't know if you've been lately to Las Vegas, but there is a plane coming in continuously. And you know, if that airport widens and jets of commercial value are able to come in here, it'll happen. And I really think it's a cutting line. We let 1A slip by 4 to 6 votes. It could happen again if it comes to a vote. So it really comes to the fact of just native Aspenites standing up and saying there's absolutely no way that we need bigger planes in this valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment this evening?
Just a question.
Yes, sir. Come on up. And if you'd introduce yourself for the record.
I'm David Lettingham, the Executive Director of the Aspen Fringe Festival. And I didn't know if this is the best time to say something because I'm here for about a grant recommendation.
Now is the time. Yes, it's not scheduled for a public hearing. It is on our consent calendar, I believe. So now is the time for
Okay, great.
comment.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to this program and the city of Aspen and all of you and all of everybody involved for the work you do on this. And it's just an amazing program, and it's enabled us, a very small arts organization, to be able to perform at the Wheeler. We do a festival at the Wheeler and sometimes 2 festivals a year. We did receive a 54% cut in our grant from last year, the Aspen Fringe Festival. I know that there's a large demand. My question is, a couple of years ago, there was a big vote to expand the scope of the grants and also the amounts of the grants. So then, to my surprise, getting a 54% cut was a little bit surprising, and we're super small organizations, so it makes a big impact on us. And when I looked at the qualifications in there, it just didn't make sense to me. But so I just wanted to say, I know this must be a difficult process. I had one question, which is, I understand the grants are now going out through the entire valley. Is that correct, or is the money collected through the RET only?
There are beneficiaries that are down valley, yes.
That are down valley, but the money collected is from the city of Aspen or Pitkin County?
City of Aspen.
City of Aspen, okay. So that's a question that I just wanted to.
In our policy on that, we recognize that down valley institutions or residents also enhance and add to and contribute to what's going on in Aspen, if not even perform or carry out some of their nonprofit mission in Aspen or for Aspenites themselves. So that is a policy question that we will probably be revisiting.
Okay, well, I just wanted to bring up the question. I know that you guys are going to be looking at it, and just another quick issue. I first performed at the Wheeler Opera House in 1985 with Bob, who was the head of the Wheeler then, Bob Murray. And I was going to school at CU Boulder, and he welcomed us here to do we did a workshop with school kids and stuff like that. it was a great experience. I came back in the mid-90s and did a couple of summers at the Wheeler Opera House. I've done over 8 performances, productions at Theater Aspen. Theater Aspen is now not really a place where community actors, even though I'm a professional actor, I've done Broadway, I've been all over the place. It's just become kind of a closed door there for, you know, substantial roles for actors. I just did a show down at Thunder River, which was amazing, and what they're doing is incredible down there at Thunder River in Carbondale, and I certainly support them. It's just, I've been here a long time. I've watched I've been part of lots of committees looking at alternative, smaller theater spaces, and we've had a bunch of them in the works that have then disappeared, so we don't really have a summer black box to perform in. So what small organizations like mine, Aspen Fringe Festival, we perform in the Wheeler. I was brought over to the Wheeler. I was invited to come to the Wheeler by Jenna Bueller, who was the then executive director, and ensured that this was going to be a long process of building this Fringe Festival, which, you know, we hire students from the Aspen schools. We hire all kinds of people from local. We bring in Tony Award-winning playwrights, choreographers, filmmakers, and then she's gone, and I'm back to the table again, trying to create a relationship with the Wheeler in terms of building this festival, and then the rug gets pulled out when there's a new person in charge of the Wheeler, and it's frustrating. Just wanted to let you know it's frustrating, and I also hope that this discussion will continue about finding a place to do a performance for a couple of weeks, because you can't do that at the Wheeler Opera House. We can only do one performance. Just so you know, the performing arts, the performing arts, especially theater, we're down 60% in audiences. It's tough times, and so to receive less of a grant is challenging for us. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, David. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Andrew Travers, and I'm a board member with the Soper Sun newspaper. And on behalf of the board and our team and our readers, I want to thank the council and grant committee for your support. The Soper Sun, along with being a bilingual source of local news, as a nonprofit, I think is providing a model that can provide a way forward for a journalism community and in crisis, to provide community-serving, fact-based journalism. And I think that if the innovative model that the Soper Sun is attempting can succeed here, I think it can grow, be replicated elsewhere. So thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for coming in.
Other members of the public for public comment this evening?
Sure.
Mike Maple, 1250 Mountain View Drive. It appears as if you're going to have a longer than might have been expected discussion about consent items. I'd hoped to be here for the public hearing on the food tax refund, but I have a date with my wife, and I fear I may not be able to stay that long. So thank you very much for reconsidering the food tax refund. Over the course of the last 20 years or so, I have seen the city staff and city councils turn a blind eye to the origin of this food tax refund, which was very, very clearly stated in a 1970 ballot measure to be just as it is described, a refund of food taxes paid. Unfortunately, for about the last 30 years, it really hasn't been. It's just been a made-up number, and as recently as 2017, the then finance director, in my opinion, was extraordinarily misleading in characterizing what an appropriate food tax refund was. So I'm very appreciative of the current finance director's outline to you all of what the food tax refund should be. And I ask you to be true to the food tax refund as it was established by the voters in 1970. In order to do that, that food tax should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $132 per year per resident, as outlined by Mr. Stecker, or something close to that. I'm a bit concerned about, as I've heard for many years, about concerns about the administration of this food tax refund, and that's, I understand that everything takes administration, but this is the right of the people as established in 1970, and the city of Aspen needs to staff it and budget for it appropriately to do what was required by the ballot measure in 1970. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike?
Other members of the public wish to address council this evening? In room or online? I've got a hand up online from Haverbeck. Can you unmute yourself, Miss or Mr. Haverbeck? Try again. I have this person muting and unmuting, but not coming through. Javier? You're not coming through yet. It says that you're unmuted, but we're not getting you through. Uh-huh. We're trying to promote you to a panelist position, which should give you the ability to get through. So please click on yes. All right, well. Just more examples of hybrid interaction on meetings. Okay, Mr. Haverbeck, if you can get back in, just go ahead and let us know when you're back in. Are there other members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Not seeing any, I will go ahead and bring it back to council table. It's an opportunity for council comments. Ward?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to commend to all of us to read the CMC community read that is, I think it's called the Bill of Obligations. I think there's a lot of really good information in there about public discourse, how tone and tenor really matter, and respect towards all. I think it's a really good, it's a quick read, and it's something that we should model not only at the council table, but throughout the community for being able to communicate to all members, regardless of what their personal or political position may be. So please read the Bill of Obligations. And on a more festive note, the Avs are on top of the league. McKinnon is having a career year. The Nuggets are on top, and coming Thursday night, ex-Councilmember Rachel Richards' husband is a huge Rangers fan, and they are playing at the Ball Arena, and Paul's going down to it, so it should be a great game. So if you want to watch something really good this Thursday night, watch the Avs and the Rangers. Avs are on a 9-game winning streak, and McKinnon has scored in every home game this year, scored a point, and is behind only Wayne Gretzky, the great one, for that record. So just fun and enjoyment can be had, and I commend all of you to the read and to enjoyment of our Denver teams.
Thanks, Ward. I apologize, council members. We've got some hands up online. I'm going to check in with these folks just to give them an opportunity. I see a Dr. Nate Sackett. And yes.
Russell Wilson.
Oh, that was nice.
Dr. Nate Sackett, are you there? Mr. Graham, are you there? And can we hear you?
Yes. Yes, hello, City Council. How are you doing today?
We're good. Is this for public comment?
Yes, it is. Yes. So I was actually hoping to talk about the Israel-Palestine conflict and kind of its effects on anti-Semitism, I believe, in the community. Okay. Well, my name is Zachary Orlando Graham. My initials are ZOG. What I would like to say is that with the Israel-Palestine conflict, I find it very reprehensible as I'm seeing anti-Semitism laws passed. I mean, I don't agree with anti-Semitism at all. I think it's awful, but I'm worried that it's impacting our First Amendment rights. I think that as people, we have the right to freely express ourselves. It was given to us in the Constitution. And I worry that some of these laws are going to impact our ability to criticize people. I think that when you look at the state of things, generally who you're not allowed to criticize is who you should be most cautious of. It's who you should actually be looking at. And I think that all it has done is actually fueled anti-Semitism, if I'm being quite honest. It's very difficult. I saw what was passed in South Dakota and in Florida. And I just worry that nationwide that these laws will impact our ability to express ourselves freely. When I'm looking at the Israel-Palestine conflict, I'm seeing, evil on the side of Israel specifically. I mean, they're shooting children in the genitals. And I mean, I don't know what it is with the Israelis, but I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the practice of matitza b'peh, but practically it's, you can look it up, it's direct oral suctioning. And basically after they circumcise a baby, they will put their mouth around the tip of the penis, I'm gonna
ask you to stop. Javi, do you mind? There is a line where we are cautious about, and the type of speech and rhetoric that you are talking right now can, for some, cross that line into what is called hate speech. So I am going to say thank you for your comments this evening, But the direction that you were just going, I think, is an area of legal concern for me and for us. So if you would like to finish your comment by saying thank you, I'll allow that. But some of the other references that you're making, I think, are too close to a line for me to handle via this technology. So thank you for your comments this evening.
I do apologize. I just think it's important to note that they are molesting children, and I don't think.
Once again, I appreciate your comments. Thank you for calling in. Have a good evening. Miss Haverback, are you available to unmute yourself?
Can you guys hear me this time?
We can hear you now. Are you calling in for public comment?
Yes, sir. Is that okay?
Depends on what your public comment is, it sounds like.
Well, I wanted to speak actually about a case we currently had in around this general area, about 20 minutes out of town. But after hearing that last comment, I wanted to actually caution you when it comes to shutting down people. There have been a lot of city councils that have been sued recently, in actually 4 different states, from my knowledge, within the last 6 months. So it is a trend that is happening. In fact, Supreme Court justices have ruled in favor of free speech time and time again. Recently, in 2017, Justice Samuel Alito said that a speech that demeans on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, disability, or any other similar ground is hateful. But it is our proudest boast of our free speech. Jurisprudence is that we protect the freedom to express the thought that we hate. I understand not wanting to listen to someone speak. I live in that reality quite often. But shutting down people in the one aspect that we should have a right to talk, it is awful. This isn't a communist regime. This is America. Not only do we have the First Amendment, but in an aspect specifically set aside in our agenda to speak, to have open public comment that is not on the agenda, I think it is incredibly important that we allow our citizens to talk. It doesn't matter if we agree with them or not. You got elected in a position to listen. So when you shut people down, you're not doing what you ran to do. And I think it does a disservice to every single citizen. Rather that citizen agrees with you or agrees with a comment, you're doing a service to everyone.
Thank you very much. I believe in a lot of what you just said, but I also believe that there is a line where people using defamatory and inflammatory and hate speech just needs to be checked. So I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Have a good evening. All right, Dr. Nate Sackett, are you still there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Nathaniel Sackett, and I would like to propose a resolution to honor brave European men who have so valiantly gifted us our current circumstances of modern convenience. We need to have a European Heritage Month, and I propose that this city council should be the first amongst many around this nation that are recognizing European Heritage Month. Just as we have months for all other people who have gained their status on the coattails of the greatest men in history who have established this land and many other lands and many other technologies, such as Ferdinand Magellan of Portugal and Spain, who circumnavigated the globe and gave his life for it, Leif Erikson, a man who traveled from Scandinavia to Iceland to Greenland to Canada almost 500 years before Columbus. Such feats have never been accomplished before, and we should pass a resolution to honor these courageous adventurers and discoverers of new lands and technologies. Bjorn Ironside, Harold Hardrada, and other glorious men of the Viking Age also traveled the known world and achieved phenomenal feats. Without these men advancing society and bringing technology, language, clothing, metallurgy, and basically every modern convenience that we now enjoy, we would not be so comfortable in the modern world. No other peoples have accomplished this level of sophisticated societal advancement and betterment of their homelands and of their folk. In fact, the peoples who are legendary figures, they have encountered and they have descendants living amongst us because of the ambitious expeditions of these outstanding European men, bringing of the modern technological civilization of these foreign peoples who were still stuck in primitive ways of life should be held in the highest regard and reverence to all non-European peoples. This is why we need European Heritage Month. I suggest that everyone here listening read about the expeditions of these men and consider the implications that they have resulted in their ambitions and achievements and unwavering loyalty and pride, and that they displayed for their people. Long live the ethnic European peoples, and may our glory never be taken for granted. We are the future, the past, and the present. Hail victory.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Last call for public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council table. Ward, thank you for your comments before. I'll go to other council members for other council member comments. Sam?
I hate to say, I certainly feel less safe than I did before. That was something special. On real comments, there's an election happening in Steamboat today about Brown Ranch, which the preliminary results should be in at 7 p.m. I think that will be of great interest to our community to see how that result goes. But it's a very ambitious affordable housing project funded by short-term rental tax, and will be very interesting.
It is also funded by $24 million anonymous donation.
Yeah. Well, that's how the land was gotten in the first place. Thank you. And other than that, a little bit of a shameless plug. My Rec B hockey team, Big Deal Brewing, won the championship this past Friday. And it gives me an opportunity to thank our recreation sport here in Aspen. Our rec leagues are so much fun. It brings back a feeling that you really usually only get in high school and before. So thank you to the Aspen Rec Center and everyone who puts that on. I already look forward to next year, and I really appreciate everything the Rec Center here does to allow us to have these leagues and to play in them and to win championships. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
John, any comments this evening?
Yeah, some positive climate news. I'd like to give a shout out to our colleagues over at the Pitkin County Board of County Commissioners who passed a fairly restrictive energy code recently that's going to encompass the whole county. Didn't go as far as I would have liked to have gone, but it's a step in the right direction, and I want to give them a shout out. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I have a few comments this evening. My first one is just to remind people that Elephant Revival is playing at the Wheeler Opera House tonight and tomorrow. Tickets still available. Get out and see some great music, absolutely great music at the Wheeler Opera House. My second comment was along the lines of what Ward was alluding to earlier as well. My comment is about civility, respect, and community. I originally intended to just say a few words because I found myself somewhat under attack in the local media and other methods, and really quite unfounded about what is being said, but it has really crossed the line from politics or community to personal. I am really disappointed to see some of the vitriol that comes from some of our community members. For those that are watching this meeting, I think you just heard some of it coming from other members that chose to spoke this evening. It's just a really ugly trend that I'm seeing. I think we've all been aware of some kind of national level failures in discourse on different levels. And it just seems to be bleeding here into Aspen more and more. And it's a shame. I am asking of my community to return respect and civility into discourse and dialogue. For those that don't appreciate that, Aspen may not be the place for you. That's my comments this evening. I'm looking for agenda amendments, none this evening. Any city managers' comments from acting city manager?
I have none.
And this is an opportunity for brief board reports from council members. Any board reports?
You want to take APSHA forward? There's not much.
No, I think primarily we're listening to an appeal. I don't think there's anything other than that, really.
20 parties have signed up for the APSHA home repair program.
And the RFP's out, and I think 20 HOAs have also signed up for their audits.
Exactly. Progress is being made.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on RAFTA or?
No, because
Okay. Brief board reports. Well, I'll start with today. Today at 8:30 a.m. I attended the ACRA board meeting, albeit I did it remote today as the snow kept me in place. But we had safety check-ins and updates from both our Pickens County Sheriff as well as our Aspen Police Department Chief. Just different efforts around community safety. And then a large majority of the conversation following that was about occupancies, business levels. I don't think many of them saw some of the presentation that we enjoyed last night, so there were still a couple of questions out there about how Aspen is faring in our tourist economy and what our outlook is for. But also the conversation was around the airport as well. RAFTA last week, we had a couple of different topics. I had the same kind of technical difficulties that some of our participants this evening had of being muted through some of my comments at RAFTA, but nonetheless, I'll give this board a full update of the topics that were covered at our RAFTA meeting last Thursday in our next work session.
Tori, could I circle back to APSHA?
Yeah.
We recently at the City Council had a work session where we discussed what we felt were important issues to bring before APSHA. We had a joint meeting with the BOCC on those same topics, and at our last meeting of APSHA, we had a presentation and more or less a work session as to find out which areas the board felt were the most important to direct energies towards maybe making some course corrections or changes. And one of the issues was maximum sale price. What happens when a unit gets turned over many times versus when somebody holds on to it for a long time? Something that I think there's a lot of support from the APSHA board to circle back and do a deeper dive on that. And John, what were the other? One of them was equity on rentals, which didn't receive. I think it only received one vote to go forward.
Well, yeah, we're definitely taking a closer look at category brackets and minimum maximum sales prices.
So just to report back that what we did here and what we did with the BOCC has been communicated to the APSHA board and is moving forward with the APSHA board approval and support.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I will add that we also did get an update from our own Carolyn Zachariason on our communications update, which has been, I think, going really well as far as opening the community's eyes to what really happens with APSHA and Carson Schmidt's columns that have been coming out. I think we are opening some people's eyes.
Thank you. With that, that'll bring us down to our consent calendar this evening. The consent calendar consists of resolution number 35. This is a contract with AECOM for climate cost analysis and financial plan. Resolution number 42, the 2024 nonprofit grant funding recommendations. Resolution number 43, environmental consulting services for the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Project. Resolution 45, the city attorney contract amendment. Resolution number 48, appointment of Donald Nottingham as Deputy Municipal Court Judge. I know that we are going to pull 42 for a brief discussion, 43 for a brief comment. Does anybody else have another item that they wish to see pulled? All right, with that, yes?
A brief discussion on 35
35, yes.
and 43.
Yes. We'll start with 35. This is the climate cost analysis and financial plan.
Good evening, Council. Just a quick overview of the plan, and then happy to answer any questions, or if that's even helpful, if you just have a question you want to ask.
Well, my notes and my comments were that I thought that we should include a cost to the private sector and what funding sources may be found to help subsidize the cost to the private sector and incentives as well. So we're looking at the public side of what the expenses are, what we've defined as our goals for the environment. But I think also that we need to evaluate and find to make it as palatable and easy as possible for the private sector to attain our goals.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments on this item? No. Thank you, Ward.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you need support for what Ward's suggestion is, or if that's something that's available in the scope, or...
It's baked in the scope, but we can make it more explicit.
Thank you. Next item is number 42. This is the 2024 nonprofit grant funding recommendations.
Good evening, Council. My name is Patrick Quick. I'm the Director of the Strategy and Innovation Office. This is John Barker. He's the Deputy Director, and our Grants Coordinator, Natalie Blumentritt. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to the staff. It's been a pretty challenging grant cycle, as you know, this year, and also want to recognize our volunteer grants committee members as well, both online and here with us today. We really could not run the grants program without our volunteers, and so we recognize them. And I think that it's also important to note that, you know, as we answer some of your questions today, that any funding recommendations are really based on the application itself and not a direct reflection on the good work that's going on in our community with our nonprofit partners, or the mission or the organization itself. And so we thank them for their efforts in the community as well. With that, we're happy to answer any questions we can today.
Thanks. I pulled this because it is my favorite meeting of the year. I just love visiting this. Other things that need to be said is that the city, a couple years ago, undertook improvements for this grant process. We changed the grant process. We enlisted more community members, and we continue to try to refine this program. I don't want to get down into individual funding recommendations at this time or at this table, because in order to do that, I think it would take a thorough review of all applications as well as the program process that it goes through, et cetera. This is a difficult process because there is always greater demand than there will be supply. Even if that supply of funding grows, their demand should grow along with it. But what I wanted to discuss here is a couple of things. One, I do think that we should schedule a work session or some method for having conversation about the process and how it's going and how it's returning. This board gives policy overview direction, and we, then get to see how that plays out. And this grants process has really been a great one of those because on an annual basis, you guys have done updates to it. You've put improvements in place, and we've seen it moving around a little bit. We obviously have some folks that are disappointed in the grants that they're receiving, but there's more than just that. So I really wanted to pull this for a couple things. One, I feel like we might have more availability to meet some of the health and human services and community nonprofit grant requests that we get. I believe funding for this is general fund dollars. So I just want to open up the conversation to find out about our capacity in our general fund and how we approach the allotment that we carve out on an annual basis. So with Pete Strecker in the back of the room, I'm also asking my fellow council members if they too would like to do some follow-up, some post-mortem, or at the very least, get some information from our finance director about how this funding can be increased in the coming years. That's my question to my fellow council members, if they have the same interest in the grant process that I do. Ward?
Yeah, I'd like to be able to give out as much money as we possibly could, but I also want to commend the process revamping that was done over the last 3 years maybe even, and the availability that the grants personnel have been to help individuals through the grant process. And I have faith in the committee, and I agree with Tori's position that I don't want to take individual denials or I don't want to question individual grants from the committee, and I'm most grateful to all of you for what you've done and the good it does for our community, but the more we can do, the better.
Others? Sam?
Yeah, I echo your comments about finding more funding. It's really hard to parse through all this because there's so many nonprofits I know, some I know more intimately, and then others I've never even heard of. And some real deep thoughts I have about it is I do believe we need to tighten the constraints around who can even apply for this. There are some applicants that are not even in our valley. And, normally I'd say go for it, but we don't have enough money for everyone, so I really believe tightening constraints is going to be a massive overhaul that we need to take on as a council. I do also believe we need to expand funding, and I almost would love if the grant steering committee would go back and say, if we had all the money in the world, how much money would you give to each of these ones and add it all up, and still give zero to ones they would give zero to, but find out the number that we would need to reach, more or less. If they haven't done that already, kind of look this way. I'm not sure if you have, just because I would consider this a success given the constraints, but overall, I really question whether getting half or a third of what you asked for is even helpful, in all honesty, or whether it feels like a good pat on the head and then good luck finding the rest of the money, and now we just have a bunch of nonprofits struggling rather than some succeeding when I hope all of them succeed. And lastly, I will say, it is going to be insanely difficult when a nonprofit in Carbondale is very beneficial to the Aspen community. At the same time, I do think that's a conversation for another day for next year to tighten these constraints so that we get what I would honestly call a better result than what we did this year. And the proof will be out there as far as success goes, but I do think people are trying to take advantage of this program, and we need to be tighter on the constraints. So I'll really hammer that home. So thank you for everything you guys have done. If you have any comments to my comments, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, I really do look forward to talking about this again and making sure that we have some significant change for next year. And I do want to address Alpine Legal Services. I don't have too much to say other than I do find it disappointing that we weren't able to find money for them, but I do not know enough from reading this to know why they didn't get money for it, but they're the only ones that came up here and asked for a specific amount. And I wish I could ask for that for them, but at the same time, I think we need to fix the process to understand why they didn't get it or why they will get it in the future, especially if they've gotten it in years past. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, I can make a couple of responses there. So on the ideal amount of money, like the merit-based amount, that is a part of our calculation process. Right?
Do you have that number to share? Or?
I could share that with you after the fact.
Okay.
But yeah, that for each of our grant divisions, right, we have our 3 grant divisions. The first step of our calculation is how much money would we give out based solely on the application assessment, and the second part of our funding is how much money do we have in our budget, and we reconcile those two numbers, and those are the numbers you see in front of you today.
No, and that's why I want to emphasize, I think you did the best you could given the constraints. I want to give you better constraints.
Thank you. And then about why any one organization was not recommended for funding, that's solely based on our volunteer review assessments, right? So we have each of these applications was reviewed by 5 volunteer community members, right? And they assess applications based on 4 criteria that are set by the Grant Steering Committee and influenced by the direction Council has given us and our overall program philosophy and strategic focus areas set by Council. And so any application that you see that was not recommended for funding is scored below the funding threshold for individual divisions.
Yeah, and I completely get that. I want to say I totally trust the Grant Steering Committee. And then I did think of one more thing. I apologize. I don't want everything to be funded 100%. I only want the ones that deserve it, once again, given the tighter constraints. The one category that I do question, and I don't question it this year or anything like that, because is the arts and culture one, only because I do think we have an endless supply of funding for that, given the Wheeler-Rhett allowance to fund arts and culture. The other ones might be a little more difficult, but that one should be easier, in my opinion, to be able to fund going into the future, as long as they deserve it, not just because they applied.
Thank you. John, your input?
Yeah, I think we all have the best of intentions here, but with this program, there's going to be some people who are going to receive funds and some people who aren't, some people who are going to get more than they. I think there are also groups of people who probably asked for more than they really needed, too. So that's another thing that should be weighed. But at any rate, there are winners and losers in this program, and I am relieved that we have a talented board that is making these decisions instead of deciding it up here at this table. And I would be interested in finding other funding sources if possible.
Thank you. So it sounds like there's a majority of council that is interested in continuing the good work that started years ago and moving it forward. Talk about some refinements to the program as it is, anything that we can do on the policy level to help our volunteer committees. There's also support on council for having a discussion about how can we get more funds available for HHS and CNP as well, with a nod at the Wheeler, but that's an ongoing conversation kind of, and I think we have a work session scheduled for that. So anyway, thank you very much.
And to clarify for that additional funding, is that for the 2025 grant cycle?
Be for 2025.
Good. And we also are planning, this grant steering committee is tackling some of these policy issues that you all have brought up today. And the steering committee and staff's planning to come back to you for a discussion on 2025 policy this summer.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
The next item, I requested a brief comment on resolution number 43. This is the environmental consulting services. I pulled this because I had conversation with Councilmember Guth today, who had a couple of questions. And so I just wanted to get the answers on the record and, assure him that his concerns were brought up in our council meeting. Chris Everson, thank you for joining us. The question that was asked of me was, why are we doing the phase 2 environmental study assessment at this time instead of previously? And a follow-up to that is it necessary to even do it at this time?
Thanks. So to answer your question, sort of twofold. First of all, my name is Chris Everson, Affordable Housing Development Project Manager with the City of Aspen. I brought with me 4 environmental due diligence documents that were submitted with the Lumberyard development application. 1, a preliminary subsoil study. 2, a cultural resource inventory. 3, a phase 1 environmental site assessment, which was performed, and a geologic hazard assessment. So to the question about have we done environmental assessment on the site before, the answer is yes. So I brought these documents, happy to resubmit them to the clerk. They're already on the public record. They were submitted with the development application. So why perform the additional testing now? We've long suspected that there is asbestos in the retail building at the Lumberyard site. And one example might be, if you have a popcorn ceiling in your house and you think there may be asbestos in it, best not to disturb it, right? So that you can continue to inhabit the house. If you want to have destructive testing performed to test that, you need to be prepared to perform the abatement. And that's sort of the second part of the answer to the question is, you had a tenant on the site who was paying you on average roughly $500,000 a year for some 16 years. That tenant has moved off the site. We're now prepared to perform the abatement. So testing for asbestos, lead, additional subsoil testing. The phase 1 ESA did identify a historic underground storage tank that was remediated. And the state documentation was identified that said no further action required. We're double checking that so that we don't run into a problem when we start to excavate the site. I think those are the answers to your questions. Now is the appropriate time to perform this additional testing because now would be the right time to perform the abatement as we prepare to mobilize to take down the buildings and the existing structures on the site.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, council members?
Yeah, I share the concerns that Bill expressed to you, Tori, that if the phase 2 ESA is really needed, you answered one of my questions about historic fueling operations there. I live at the base of Smuggler Mountain. Smuggler Mountain was brought to the attention of the EPA. It became a Superfund site, and it took years to get decades to get delisted. And one of the crux of the matter was lead and bioavailability of that lead that's in the mine tailings. And I guess what I'm saying is, if it's already been determined that the fuel tank has been, doesn't need mitigation, and I'm just really skeptical about opening up Pandora's box on this, that if we don't need it to go forward, and I think we had geotechnical studies done on the site as part of the entitlements and the whole process that's been going on for 3 or 4 years. So if we can avoid the Phase 2 ESA, I am in favor of avoiding that.
Sure. So what I didn't bring with me was any of our air quality testing materials. We did do air quality testing at the Lumberyard site, right? And we had the results of that air quality testing peer-reviewed, if you recall. The peer reviewer was our environmental scientist who's working for our architect. He recommended additional testing for benzene and a few other compounds, right? We talked about that here during the land use process, and everybody was supportive of us doing that additional testing. We have. We've not published that report to you. We published it to the folks at the airport. It's available upon request if you'd like to see it. But we found no further indication of any sort of hazard. So via the same process, this recommendation has come to us from our environmental scientist on the project, just so that we don't leave anything unturned and later get asked the question, why didn't we test for this? So that's the reason for the recommendation, and that's why we're asking to go forward.
Thanks, Chris.
Any other concerns at the council table about the Phase 2?
I'll make a motion for the consent calendar if you're ready.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I have a brief note of further discussion. If Mr. Don Nottingham would please stand. I just wanted everybody to get eyes on this gentleman. He is considered for appointment as the Deputy Municipal Court Judge. Thank you very much. Deputy?
A deputy.
A deputy.
He's a lawyer.
Any further discussion? Yeah, right. Could we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. This will bring us down to public hearings this evening. Item ordinance number 3, this is an increase to the food tax refund award.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pete Strecker, Finance Director for the city. I'm here to present ordinance number 3 on second reading. This ordinance increases the food tax refund from $55 to $65. That is for the current program that is being run in 2024 and is consistent with the adoption of the 2024 budget that already funded this program.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time?
Yeah. I hope to make a proposal to go increase that number tonight, and I have a feeling that the pushback I'll get is because we already have an established budget. Is there a number that you can give me that you would feel comfortable with that I can increase this number to for this year's budget, or is that not a fair question? If it's not, I rescind the question. But if you can answer, great.
Yeah, I think there are options for the council with the power of the purse to basically make the adjustment whatever deemed necessary. It would require a budget adjustment to effectuate that in the appropriations. To establish a number, that's entirely at council's direction.
So, council members, and this is a public hearing, so let me open the public hearing first, and then we'll talk. This is a public hearing on ordinance number 3, food tax refunds. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment this evening on ordinance number 3? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council table. Okay, so council, we had all discussed this months ago. We decided that we thought that the food tax was a little bit low for its intended purposes. I will, however, reference Mr. Maple's letter that he shared with us. It talks about the 1% tax that was instituted in 1971, and it says it provides that the said revenues shall be expended by the city council for the payment of food tax refunds and for the acquisition of real property, including open space and the construction of capital improvements for municipal purposes, or the payment of indebtedness incurred for such acquisition or construction of capital improvements for municipal purposes, for the expenditures necessary to protect such property against loss, damage, and destruction. Providing that certain refunds shall be made to the residents of the city of Aspen upon application, therefore providing that the city council may amend, alter, or change this ordinance except as to the 1% rate of tax herein imposed in the earmarking of revenues therefrom under certain circumstances, providing penalties with respect to blah, 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 blah. Meaning that this, the allocation of these taxes are not for the sole purpose of refunding to qualified applicants. However, we feel like there is perhaps more of equitable distribution of these funds back to those that are paying the 1% or now 2.4% sales tax that is instituted. So this council made agreement that we wanted to see the direction come back in the form of this ordinance to raise the current award level from $55 to $65. Through the information that we have received from our finance director, we recognize that that doesn't really bring this to parity with what it may have done in 1971. I think that we all still have some questions around the program, the intent and the intention of the program going forward, but we do agree in large part that a greater increase is something that we are desirous to see. To that end, what I would say is I would propose an amendment to ordinance number 3 to, instead of $65, just making a modest increase to that, knowing that we are trying to work towards a 2025 level of perhaps $132. So tonight I would say to my council members, if there was a comfort level, raising that just a little bit to $75 or $85 under the current program for the year 2024. It is an amount sustainable for our budget while we continue to look into some of the equity issues and parity issues that we were talking about. If you want to ask Pete if that is something that is sustainable by the budget and the funds that are available for this allocation, I think his answer would be yes, that is something that is doable. With respect to Councilman Guth, who did at our meeting yesterday really ask for some budgetary information before we made too much more of an escalation, I again would say to my fellow council members, you have the ability to consider a higher increase than the 65, and we can amend this ordinance here and now. So 75 or 85 is kind of where I'm topping out for this year, so we can do the research and get the budgetary information impact that we're looking for the future.
Your Honor, would you like to make a motion for one of those numbers?
I'd like to get your feedback. Sam, I know, is desirous of seeing the higher number, so I'm just looking at John and Ward. Where do you?
The highest number, the third person's willing to go.
I think last time we had a work session where we expressed a desire to revisit this with in-depth look at an automatic escalating clause in the future. That 132 is probably what Mr. Maple recommended in his letter to us. Within 60 cents a year, I think he came up with pretty much exactly the same numbers that our finance director came up with. And I think I would support the higher, instead of raising it $10 a year, raising it $30 a year to a figure of $85 for 2024, with the design and intention of having a more in-depth dive on this for 2025.
Okay. John, I hate to put you in a tough spot, but
sweating over here.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Great.
I support the 85, the raise to 85. I think that's a step in the right direction. It's quite an increase over what was granted last year, and we will get more information in the future and have, we'll raise this amount. We just don't know how high yet.
Great.
One final comment?
Yep.
I wish we could go higher than 85. I've made that very clear. The one question I do have, and this is a little nitpicky, is the number of 132 was meant for 2024. I would hope, I would ask if you're able to do the math for what next year's number should be, because I imagine it's something like 133 or 135 or something silly like that, but I think it's very important that we get back on track with this, and we don't commit to 132 for next year, but whatever number it should be using the equation that you used.
Yeah, the equation that I used included the annual CPI number, so I do have to wait for the next annual number to come out essentially. So that is roughly around this time every year, in March or so.
So you should have the number for next year really soon.
Well, so yes, I would be able to inflate whatever, the 132 by another year's worth of inflation.
Okay.
Call it 3%.
Whatever it is, but I think it's important to get back on track and.
I do too. However, you know, I don't think that this is a parallel track. You know, this was started in 1972. Times are different. I really don't think that there is, it is not the same circumstance. So I'm looking forward to having a further conversation about it. We are starting to talk about real dollars. You know, the impacts of going up to 132 and stuff, that is a real impact. That is going to have budgetary impact. But I know if we're all interested in doing it. I just want to make sure that we're doing it on an equitable level for everybody. With that, I will make a motion. I would move to approve ordinance number 3 amended to reflect for 2024 an $85 per eligible individual award.
So I just want to clarify before you get a second. Well, I guess you need a second for that, and I can clarify after that. But you've made a motion.
I'll second.
My clarification just makes sure that you're not intending to raise the provisions regarding those over age 65 or those who are blind.
I was going to clarify that for you before you asked. And no, there is no intention to eliminate those provisions.
Okay, thank you.
But
sorry,
there might be in the future.
But there might be in the future. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 3 as amended, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Hohenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Rose,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. And thanks for the work that you put into that.
Yes,
do-
thank you.
I do have one quick comment, though, alluding to what Sam brought up last night, that this would be more beneficial to people under 30, or let's just say our younger Aspenites. How do we get that message out to them? I think we are, but I just want to make sure that it is out there for people to take advantage of, especially the younger people.
I tell everyone I know. That qualifies.
With that, that brings us down to our action item, which is resolution number 46.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm James R. True, City Attorney. This item comes to you from the City Attorney's Office and is a proposed settlement agreement regarding 2 ongoing litigation items, Forest Lookout 2 LLC and Aspen Forest 8th Street versus the City of Aspen, and DR 24F16 LLC versus the City of Aspen. Those are 2 separate lawsuits that were brought by the purchasers of lots 4 and 5 of the Ranger Station subdivision. I provided information to support the proposed settlement that is brought to you and supported by the City Attorney's Office. Josh Marks, who is outside counsel hired by CIRSA on behalf of the city in these litigations, as well as Community Development Director. The the matter was originally brought by DR 24F16 LLC. That case was dismissed. The dismissal was appealed by them, and it went to the Court of Appeals and was reversed and brought back down. At the same time, Forest Lookout, who was the owner of the property, DR 24F16, was an assignee. Forest Lookout and Aspen Forest 8th Street were the owners of the two lots, 4 and 5. I point this out because it just emphasized that this has been some complicated ongoing litigation, and we're proposing to resolve this. This started, and I do like to emphasize the fact that this started when the Forest Service approached the City of Aspen with desires to subdivide the property over on the S-curves that constitutes the Forest Service, administrative, visitor services, and some rangers housing. They wanted to subdivide the property, sell 5 lots, retain the profit, and redevelop the property. The city certainly supported redevelopment of the property, but we felt that the Forest Service should go through our administrative processes. Forest Service, as I noted in my memorandum, wanted no part of that. They exercised their federal preemption status, said they were going to subdivide and sell these units, and did so by filing a plat, issuing deeds to the buyers of those lots. There were 3 buyers of the 5 lots. One buyer bought lots 4 and 5 of the Ranger Station subdivision. We made it clear to all the buyers that we felt that they would not have a development right and would have to go through our GMQS process. That was a long process, but ultimately resulted in development approvals for these properties. The 2 owners of the property that are parties to this lawsuit, Forest Lookout 2 and Aspen Forest 8th Street, purchased these properties from those original, the lots 4 and 5 from those original owners, and proceeded with the development of the lots. As part of the process, the owners were obligated to pay a development and housing mitigation to the city pursuant to formulas that were adopted in previous ordinances that approved these properties. However, and they paid those as required. However, they did file, these 2 owners filed lawsuits against the city of Aspen, challenging the amount under the state's impact fee statute, 292101 at SEC. The real debate was our implementation of a formula for inclusionary zoning into that housing mitigation. We've been in litigation for some time with this case, and during the litigation, the owners of the property, who were the plaintiffs, came to us and proposed a settlement agreement that is in front of you. We had some negotiations with the owners. Their proposal was that rather than settle through a cash payment, which had been discussed any number of times, that we settle by issuing 2 housing certificates. Those have significant value. We won't dispute that. It's approximately $400,000 per certificate. But that is less than what they were seeking and what the bottom, the worst case scenario would be to the city. So given the complicated nature of this litigation, given some concerns about how this came about, how we were instituting inclusionary zoning, how we were complying with the mitigation statute, we felt that settlement under the terms proposed was in the best interest of the city, did not allow or require a cash outlay, and would provide housing certificates that could be sold. And I would note that I got a call today, recognize somebody who was trying to find out what to do when there were no housing certificates on the market, which apparently there aren't any at this time. So, all things considered, the city attorney's office, Josh Marks, as well as the community development director do believe that this would be a way under your police powers to resolve this litigation through this settlement agreement, and that this would be fair to both sides and to the city and its citizens to just resolve this litigation at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if any, we have one representative who's here to answer questions. If you have any for them, he's a representative of the plaintiffs. But we're happy to answer any questions regarding this, but we're recommending that you approve resolution number 46, which authorizes the city manager to sign the settlement agreement. I would note that the settlement agreement has been executed by the plaintiffs and would not admit any, would not admit liability on the city's part. This is or any issues of fault. It's just a settlement that resolves all issues, dismisses the litigation, and allows the parties to move about their business and doesn't allow have a cash outlay to the plaintiffs. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions?
Comment?
Okay.
I think this is a unicorn. I think it's a one-off, and I think it's because it was Forest Service federal land that it just made everything a lot more confusing, and that the property has been bought and sold, and it's to the satisfaction of all parties. I see no reason why we should not approve Resolution 46.
Any other statements or comments? Questions? Suggestions?
Ready for a motion?
For a motion?
You good?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 46, Series of 2024, the settlement agreement.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Mac Henderson. I'm a new attorney at Garfield and Hecht.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Staff is requesting that council go into executive session pursuant to Sierra Section 246402-4A, purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, sale of real or personal property or other interests. 4B, conference with the attorney for the local public body for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. And 4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The specific items of discussion involve the following: the Centennial Owners Association versus the City of Aspen. If council votes to go into executive session, and would take a unanimous vote of the council members here. If they vote to go into executive session, the executive session will be recorded, and the recording will be maintained by the clerk for a period of not less than 90 days.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for going into executive session, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yay.
Counselor Rose,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
As always, if we will adjourn to the city conference room downstairs, we will not be returning to these chambers to adjourn this meeting. And unfortunately, there's no food.
There is.
Thank you as always to Grassroots. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful evening. We will be back actually in a few weeks.
When I saw the sushi, I was like,
Having next week off of meetings. Thank you or not next week. No, we'll be back next week, next Monday.
On April Fool's Day.
Thank you very much.